So what I want to talk about today is, a lot of what we do, okay, and this is tied to the topic of sort of rescue capital, okay? And rescue capital is an overstatement of the word. If a guy needs rescuing, you probably don't want to go rescue him. But if a guy needs money on a good deal and he's willing to give up some of his equity, that may be a great deal. So a lot of what we do and how we react is driven by our mindset and how we feel. So after having discussions with, I'm going to say, 100 developers, okay, this is sort of my overall summary and conclusion about how developers are thinking. Okay, so number one, I would say that the number one and the easiest thing to do, and sometimes the right thing to do, is pause. Okay, and the closer you are, I think, to a downtown area like the city of Toronto or something like that, the more likely it is that you paused. Okay, so if you were building a 30-story high-rise with 6 levels of underground parking, that deal doesn't pencil out anywhere near where it would have before because of construction costs, interest rates, and so on. So the most logical thing to do was to pause. So you're sailing a ship from Halifax to London, England. All of a sudden there's a fog and all the instruments on your boat fail. Well, the smartest thing to do would be to just pause. And that's what lots of people have done. They paused. Okay, and I would say the more you are downtown, the more you are a bigger city like Toronto or Vancouver, then you would have people pausing. Okay. Doesn't mean that if you got a deal started, you should stop. I mean, if you got it financed and so on, you're going ahead with it. Over the long term, this makes a lot of sense. Apartment development. Okay, number two, Rod. The number two is building for the long term. And this is more private people. These are wealthy families that know the following. 40 years ago, I built a building for $10 million. My father built a building for $10 million, and today it's worth $100 million. And that's probably, that math is pretty close. If I build a $10 million building today, I know in 40 years it'll be worth $100 million, probably more given the inflation that we're going to get in the future, right? And that's one of the friend of apartment ownership is inflation. So people are saying, look, I'm building apartments right now for the long term. I may think that next year or the following year is foggy, but I know it's clear in year 5, year 6, year 7, year 10, or whatever that case is, because I've been in the apartment business for a long time. So that's people who are building for the long term. They're not thinking about the short term. They're going ahead. Oftentimes they've got low financing, sometimes no financing, but they love the apartment business. They made their fortune in it, and that's where they're staying. Okay. Number three is kind of like number two, except you just don't have that cash. So you believe in the apartment story. So while things might seem a little wonky today, you believe interest rates are going to go down. You believe land costs might go down. You believe construction costs might go down. Therefore, and cap rates will go down. And so you're building into the story. We invest our clients' money and our own money into developers who believe in the story. Fair enough? Because we believe the story, and we've seen this over and over again. Okay, so people are building based on that. Number four is, and this is probably the scary one. I think I call it the US model, is a developer who builds for fees. He may not even be a developer, he may be a promoter. Okay, so there's a construction or development fee, 3-5%, whatever it is. I mean, some developers just have to build because they need that. So they might raise the money and go ahead and build the deal. They need to get the fees to live, keep the kids in private school, and they're hoping for a promote. Okay, and so that to me is sort of the scarier deals. We wouldn't be putting our money or our clients' money in a deal like that. We're looking for someone who's been doing this for a while, for the long term, and so on. Okay, the next scenario, I would call this the build smaller and build slower. It's kind of like a combination of number one and number two. So we've got clients who normally build 250 unit buildings. They're saying, look, we love the business. We've got a machine, we've got a feed, but things look a little concerning here in central Canada. And so they're just building smaller buildings. One of my clients went on and purchased a site, and he got his kids to build a 20 unit building, and he's building an 80 unit building, right? And so he just said, look, I'm not betting the farm right now, but this is my core business. I want to keep my team together. I want to keep my toe in the water, building smaller building. Another developer is planning to build started 4 buildings, and he was just going to build one every 6 months. They were small buildings, 60 units each. I just moved the trades over. It was a logical, efficient thing to do. But he said, you know what? Maybe I won't make as much money, but I'm going to build one. I'm going to stabilize. I'm going to finance it. Then I'm going to build my second one. Then I'll build my third. But if the market picks up, I'll just pick up speed, right? So that's what I say. It's like building smaller and slower. Okay. Number 6 would be, is hard to do, easy to say, hard to do. Okay. Look, apartment development is not going away. It can't go away. We've got a housing problem. We certainly have a rental housing problem. It's called housing crisis. I think it's an affordability crisis, because if people can afford it, developers would build it. Okay, so it's an affordability issue. But I'm saying use this time when things may have slowed down, and we're seeing this, we're doing this in our company. We're building a better company. Okay, for the first time, we're able to hire better people, because there are more people available out there, and there's going to be more available going forward. Certainly, probably some really good financial people right now, because a lot of the institutions have sort of cut the ranks of their financial underwriting people and so on. So I'm saying use this time to build a better company, acquire land, acquire skills, create standard operating practices, and get ready for what in all likelihood is a rich apartment development opportunity. Okay. Now, number 7, and this is one that I've sort of created, I would say prepare for the boom in affordable housing. Okay. I never much liked Obama or his staff, but he had this guy on called Rahm Emanuel, and he said, never let a crisis go to waste. Okay. The media on the housing crisis is just there, and it's unrelenting. So if we've got an affordable housing crisis, then we're going to get involvement from government. Not what we love, but if they're going to give away money, get in the way of some of it. Unfortunately, the money is going to be probably distributed poorly and inefficiently. A really good example was the removal of the HST, GST. A welcomed idea, for sure. But the fact is that it wasn't retroactive. So the developers who already started were punished, and the developers who hadn't started were rewarded, right? So now I'm a developer. I'm going to, wait a minute, there could be more goodies coming. I'm not going to break ground because I'll lose them. It should have been retroactive, and things like that, right?